I still look in mirrors twice. Not because I'm vain. Because for 32 years I shared a face with someone who used it better than I did. Someone who smiled sharper, lied prettier, and made our mother love her more simply by existing in the same room. Her name is Vanessa. Was Vanessa. Is I'm still not sure. We haven't spoken in 12 years. We haven't been in the same room. We haven't breathed the same air until the night I walked into a hospital and let them call me by her name. My name is Vivian. I'm 32 years old. And this is the story of how my twin sister stole my face, and how I stole her life, her husband, her fortune, and almost everything that made her real. Almost. Welcome to Little Bunny Stories. If you're new here, this is where we tell the truth about families that look like mirrors and cut like glass. If you've ever had someone who shared your blood compete for your mother's love like it was a trophy, if you've ever looked at your own face and seen your enemy, subscribe. We have stories for you every week. And we read every comment. Here's my story. We were born 4 minutes apart. Vanessa first, me second. In our mother's mythology, this made her the leader and me the follower. The alpha and the beta. The one who was born ready and the one who was born late. Vivian is the smart one. Our mother would say at dinner parties, her hand on Vanessa's shoulder, never mine. Vanessa is the pretty one. A year later, Vanessa is the ambitious one. Vivian is the sensitive one. The categories shifted, but the hierarchy never did. There was always a winner, there was always a loser. And our mother, with her cold eyes and her competitive smile, was the only referee who mattered. We were identical. Genetically, medically, visually identical. But our mother saw differences that didn't exist. Vanessa's laugh was musical. Mine was loud. Vanessa's tears were moving. Mine were manipulative. We learned to perform for her, to compete for scraps of warmth that never filled the stomach, only kept it growling. We had a language, twins do. A shorthand of glances, of half-finished sentences, of understanding that passed between us like electricity, but our mother weaponized even this. You're too close, she'd say, separating us at the dinner table. It's not healthy, you need other friends. She didn't want us allied, she wanted us rival, and we were. By 16, we were strangers who shared a bathroom. Vanessa stole my homework and claimed it as hers. I stole her boyfriend and dumped him before she could. She told our mother I was smoking. I told our father when he was still around, before he left for a younger woman, which was really just a woman who didn't make him feel like a constant failure, that Vanessa was sneaking out. We were toxic. We were mirrors reflecting each other's worst possibilities, but we were also sisters. At night, when our mother was asleep, we'd meet in the hallway, not to reconcile, to compare wounds. She said my dress made me look cheap. She said I was embarrassing her at the parent conference. She said I was the reason Dad left. We'd sit on the floor, backs against opposite walls, identical faces in the dark, and we'd know we'd no asterisk, that neither of us was enough. That our mother's love was a pie that shrank every time she served it, until there was only crust, only crumbs, only the memory of something sweet. I thought this was normal. I thought all families were war zones with good lighting. I didn't know I was being trained for something I couldn't yet name. The discovery happened at 18. I came home early from a study session. I was always the studious one, even when our mother denied it, and I heard sounds from the master bedroom. Not unusual. Our mother had friends who visited. But this voice was familiar, too familiar. I opened the door. I shouldn't have. I know that now. But 18 is an age of terrible curiosity, believing that truth is always better than suspicion. Vanessa's boyfriend, Marcus, was in bed with our mother. Not just in bed, asterisk and asterisk her. They didn't see me at first. I stood there, frozen, watching the man who'd kissed my sister that morning now kissing our mother with the same mouth. The same hands, the same lies. Marcus saw me first. His eyes went wide. He pulled away, grabbed a sheet, stammered something I don't remember. Our mother, she didn't grab anything. She sat up, naked, unashamed, and looked at me with the same evaluation she used at dinner parties. Well, she said, now you know, I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I walked to Vanessa's room and I told her everything, the sounds I'd heard, the image I couldn't unsee, the way our mother had looked at me, not guilty, not embarrassed, but asterisk challenging asterisk, daring me to do something about it. Vanessa didn't believe me. I expected tears. I expected rage. I expected her to march to our mother's room and demand answers. Instead, she laughed. A sharp, ugly sound that broke something between us that had been cracking for years. You always wanted him, she said. I knew it, Mom warned me. Watch Vivian, she said. She's jealous of what you have, she'll try to take it. Vanessa, I saw them, you saw what you wanted to see. She grabbed a glass from her nightstand, water, vodka, I don't know, and threw it. It missed me, shattered against the wall, a sound like a gunshot. You're pathetic. Mom was right. You're jealous, sick, desperate for attention. Marcus would never, and Mom loves me asterisk. She'd never do that to me. She's doing it to you right now, I said. While you defend her, while you call me the liar. Vanessa slapped me hard. Our faces were identical, but her hand felt foreign, like being struck by a stranger. Get out, she whispered. Get out of my room. Get out of my life. I never want to see you again. I left. I packed a bag that night. I walked to a bus station and I didn't look back. Our mother didn't stop me. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching me leave with the same evaluation she'd used my entire life. Not enough, not worth keeping, not Vanessa, 12 years. I built a life in a town small enough to forget your name. I taught 3rd grade. I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with a cat and a garden and the silence I'd always needed. I dated no one. I trusted no one. I looked in mirrors twice, once to check my face, once to make sure it was really mine. Vanessa became famous. Not famous. Internet famous. 2 million followers, a verified checkmark, a life of sponsored posts and luxury unboxings, and a husband who produced movies I never watched. She married Marco Castellanos at 25, a man 15 years older, handsome in a way that looked expensive, with eyes that never smiled even when his mouth did. They had no children yet, they had a penthouse, they had a brand. I followed her in secret. Not officially, I never clicked follow, never liked, never commented. But I searched her name in incognito windows. I watched her stories. I saw her face, my face, aging differently, painted differently, performing a happiness that looked exhausting. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself I was checking to make sure she was miserable. I told myself a lot of things. The call came on a Tuesday. I was grading spelling tests, red pen in hand, when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Is this Vanessa Martinez? A woman's voice, professional, urgent. No, I said. This is Vivian, her sister. Miss Martinez, your sister has been in a car accident. She's at St. Mary's Hospital, critical condition. You're listed as her emergency contact. I didn't correct the name. I don't know why. Maybe because Vivian was invisible, was nobody, was a 3rd grade teacher who graded spelling tests on Tuesdays. Maybe because Vanessa was the one who mattered, who had emergencies, who had people who called when she was hurt. I'll be there, I said. The hospital was white and beeping and smelled of antiseptic and dread. I walked to the desk and said, I'm Vanessa Martinez. My sister was brought in, Vivian. The nurse looked at me, at my face, at the picture on Vanessa's ID which they had, which was in her wallet, which was in the bag they'd given me along with her phone and her jewelry and her life. Miss Martinez, the nurse said, and I heard the name land on me like a coat that didn't fit. Your sister is in ICU. She's in a medically induced coma. The doctor will speak with you. I nodded, I signed papers. I said yes and I understand and thank you in a voice that sounded like Vanessa's, higher, more confident, more practiced at being watched. No one questioned. No one looked twice. We were identical, we were interchangeable. And in that interchangeability I felt something I hadn't felt in 12 years, power. The doctor was kind, overworked. He explained the traumatic brain injury, the swelling, the uncertainty. She may wake up in days, in weeks, in months, or never, we can't predict. I nodded, I asked the right questions, and then I went to see her. Vanessa lay in a bed that looked too small for her fame, too ordinary for her brand, tubes everywhere, machines breathing for her. Her face, my face, swollen, bruised, but still recognizably beautiful, still recognizably mine. I stood there for an hour, maybe 2, I didn't touch her. I didn't speak. I just looked at the face I'd avoided for 12 years, the face that had taken everything, and I felt something complex. Not pity, not love, something like recognition, like looking at a version of yourself that had won every battle and still lost the war. And then, I don't know when the decision formed, it wasn't planned, it wasn't premeditated, it was simply there, like a door that had always been locked suddenly swinging open. I went back to the desk. I'm sorry, I said to the same nurse. I was in shock earlier. I'm Vivian. Vanessa is my sister. She's the one in the coma. I couldn't process it. The nurse smiled, sympathetic. Of course, family trauma. Would you like to update the contact information? Yes, I said, and I gave her Vanessa's number, Vanessa's address, Vanessa's life. I'm staying at her place while we figure this out. You can reach me there. I walked out with Vanessa's wallet in my pocket, her phone in my hand, her keys on a ring that included a fob for a building I'd only seen in photos. I took a taxi to her address. I entered her building. I rode the elevator to the penthouse, and I stepped into my sister's life. The first shock was the space, not the size I'd expected luxury, but the emptiness, the curated perfection, everything white and beige and expensive and dead. No books with cracked spines, no cat hair on the couch, no evidence that anyone actually lived here, that anyone laughed or cried or spilled coffee or lived imperfectly. The second shock was Marco. He came home at midnight. I was in the kitchen, drinking Vanessa's wine from Vanessa's glass, wearing Vanessa's robe, and I heard the door open with a precision that sounded practiced, controlled. Vanessa. His voice was deep, smooth, the voice of a man who'd learned to sound concerned without ever feeling it. I turned, I smiled. I said, Marco. In Vanessa's tone, Vanessa's cadence, the way I'd heard her speak in videos for 12 years. He looked at me, really looked, and I saw something in his eyes that Vanessa's followers never saw. Assessment, calculation, the look of a man inventorying his property. You're late, I said, trying Vanessa's petulance. Meeting ran long. He walked to me, kissed my cheek, dry, brief, contractual. How are you feeling? Fine, tired. He nodded. He went to the bedroom. I followed, my heart hammering, my body remembering every self-defense class I'd taken in my small-town life, every preparation for a man who might enter my space uninvited. But Marco didn't touch me. He went to the bathroom, emerged in pajamas that cost more than my monthly rent, and got into bed. He opened his laptop and began working. He didn't look at me again. I lay in Vanessa's bed, in Vanessa's silk sheets, next to a man who was technically my husband now, and I felt nothing. Not fear, not excitement, just the vast, echoing emptiness of a life built for display. The first week was survival. I learned Vanessa's passwords by trying combinations of her brand name, her birthday, her mother's maiden name. I learned her schedule, content days, editing days, engagement days where she replied to comments and DMs. I learned her voice, her angles, her filters, the way she held her phone to make her neck look longer, her eyes bigger, her life more luminous. I posted a story. Recovering from a minor accident, so grateful for this man who takes care of everything. A photo of Marco's back as he worked at his desk. A caption that sounded like gratitude but was really performance. The comments flooded in. Couple goals. Get well soon, queen. Marco is such a husband. Marco found the post. He didn't comment. He just looked at me over breakfast, the breakfast I didn't know how to cook, so I ordered from the service Vanessa used and said, You forgot to tag the robe brand, that's a $3,000 partnership. I nodded. I added the tag. I learned, but I also learned other things. The charity foundation Vanessa promoted, the Alina Castellanos Foundation for Girls' Education, was a shell. Money went in, photos came out, but the tax filings showed administrative costs of 90%. The business trips to Miami and LA, I found receipts for hotels booked for two, for champagne, for lingerie that wasn't in Vanessa's closet. The friendships with other influencers, all transactional, all scheduled, all as empty as the penthouse. And then I found the phone. A second phone, hidden in a box of shoes I never would have worn, 6-inch heels, red, aggressive. The phone had a passcode, but it was Vanessa's birthday backwards. Too easy. She wanted it found maybe, wanted someone to know. The messages were with a man named Dr. Adrian Reyes, a surgeon, married. The texts were explicit, but more than that, they were planning. After the twins are born, I'll file. The prenup gives me half if he cheats, and I have evidence of 3 affairs. The twins are yours, Adrian. I've done the math, we'll be free. Twins. I put my hand on my stomach, Vanessa's stomach, and felt the slight swell I'd assumed was weight, was bloat, was the result of a life lived on camera. But no, she was pregnant, with twins, and they weren't Marco's. I sat on the bathroom floor for an hour. The tiles were heated. Of course they were. Everything in this life was heated, padded, filtered, comfortable. Except the truth. The truth was cold tile against your back at 3 a.m., realizing you were trapped in a pregnancy that wasn't yours, a marriage that was a prison, a plan that required you to be someone you weren't for months longer. I could leave. I could tell the truth. I could go back to my 3rd-grade classroom and my cat and my garden and let Vanessa wake up to her own mess. But I didn't, because I found something else in that phone. Videos. Vanessa, drunk, crying, alone in this bathroom. He watches everything. My phone, my accounts, my steps. If I leave, he'll destroy me. He'll take everything. He'll say I'm unfit. He has lawyers, doctors, judges in his pocket. I'm not a person to him. I'm a brand, a prop. And now I'm pregnant with Adrian's children, and I can't even tell Adrian because Marco monitors my calls, and the video ended. She dropped the phone or stopped recording or simply lost the energy to continue. I watched it 3 times. And I understood. Vanessa hadn't been winning. She'd been surviving, same as me. She'd just been better at hiding it. I became Vanessa. Not perfectly, Marco noticed inconsistencies. I forgot passwords I'd never known. I changed preferences I'd never had. I slept on the couch some nights, claiming pregnancy discomfort, when really I couldn't bear his presence in the bed. I flinched when he touched me and he noticed, and his eyes went cold with suspicion. But I also learned to fight back. I found the financial records, the offshore accounts, the shell companies. I documented everything not for me but for the twins, for the children who didn't choose this, who deserved protection from a man who'd used them as bargaining chips. And I found Vanessa's plan. The divorce papers already drafted. The evidence of Marco's affairs compiled by a private investigator. The trust fund she'd established, secret, untouchable, for future children. She'd been preparing for years. She just needed the twins to be born, the prenup clause to trigger, the freedom to escape. I decided to execute her plan, but in my own way, with my own timing, with my own ending. The call came 6 weeks later. Vanessa was awake. I was in the penthouse editing a video, morning routine of a pregnant CEO, when my phone rang. The hospital. "Miss Martinez, your sister is conscious. She's asking for you." I drove. I didn't take the driver. I needed the silence, the space, the 4 walls of a car that was mine, not Vanessa's. I needed to remember who I was before I became her. She was sitting up when I entered, thin, pale but awake, alert. Her eyes, my eyes, found me immediately, and I saw the same complex recognition I'd felt in her hospital room. "Vivian," she said, not a question, a statement. I sat in the chair beside her bed. We looked at each other, identical faces, different lives, 12 years of silence compressed into a single room. "You've been busy," she said. Her voice was hoarse, but the cadence was hers, sharp, controlled. "Marco called. He said I've been different, that I forgot things, that I don't feel like myself." She laughed, a dry, painful sound. "He doesn't know how right he is." "I didn't plan this," I said. "I went to the hospital. They called me you. I just didn't correct them. And then you stayed." She tilted her head, studying me. "Why, you could have left, could have told the truth, could have let me wake up to my own disaster." I pulled out her second phone, the one with Adrian, the videos, the plan. "I found this. I know about the twins, about Marco, about everything." Vanessa's face changed. The control cracked. For a moment, she looked like me, like the third-grade teacher who graded spelling tests, like someone who was tired of performing. "So you know," she whispered. "You know I'm trapped, that I've been trapped for years, that this pregnancy is my only escape, and even that." She stopped, looked at me. "What do you want, Vivian? Money, the penthouse, my life? You can have it. I don't want it anymore." "I want you to propose something," I said. "Because I have a proposal too." She raised an eyebrow, Vanessa's gesture, one I'd practiced in mirrors. "You keep being me," she said, "until the twins are born. You file for divorce with the evidence I compiled. You take half, you take the twins, you disappear. And I," she smiled, weak but genuine, "I become you, the teacher, the small town, the invisible life. I've been watching you too, you know, not as much as you watched me, but enough. Enough to know you built something I don't have, something I don't know how to build." "Why?" I asked. "Why would you give up everything?" "Because everything is killing me," she said. "Because Marco knows. Not about you, he knows something's wrong, but he thinks I'm mentally ill, thinks the pregnancy is changing me. He's preparing to have me committed, to take the twins, to keep everything. If you stay, if you finish this, you can beat him. You're not broken yet, you still know how to fight." I should have said no. I should have walked out, told the truth, saved myself. But I looked at her, at my face, exhausted, desperate, offering me her life like it was a gift instead of a burden, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 12 years. Connection, not love, not forgiveness, but the understanding that we were both our mother's daughters, that we'd both been trained to compete for crumbs, that neither of us had won. "There's a condition," I said. "When it's done, when you have your small town and I have whatever I have, we meet. We talk. We don't pretend the 12 years didn't happen." She nodded. "Deal." We shook hands, identical hands. And I went back to being Vanessa, knowing now that I was also being Vivian, that the lines were blurring, that I was becoming someone new, someone dangerous. The months that followed were the strangest of my life. I was pregnant with children that weren't mine, married to a man I despised, performing a life I'd never wanted for an audience of millions. But I was also learning, growing, discovering that Vanessa's skills, the performance, the manipulation, the ability to read a room and give it what it wanted could be weapons, could be tools, could be mine. Marco grew more suspicious. He found the second phone, I'd hidden it poorly or he'd searched thoroughly, I never knew. He confronted me in the kitchen, his hand around my throat, his voice low and venomous. Who is Adrian Reyes? I didn't flinch. I looked at him, this man who controlled, who inventory, who owned, and I used Vanessa's voice. But Vivian's calm. A mistake, I said. Before you, before us. Someone I needed to feel alive when you were making me feel dead. He squeezed. I didn't struggle. I just watched him, waiting for him to decide if he was a man who killed or a man who controlled. He was the second. He let go. He walked away. And I knew I had him, not because he believed me, but because he couldn't prove otherwise. Because the pregnancy was too far along. Because the brand of perfect couple was worth more than revenge. I prepared. I met with Vanessa's lawyer, my lawyer now, and finalized the divorce papers. I transferred evidence to secure drives. I established accounts and names that weren't Vanessa's or mine, but a combination, V. Martinez, ambiguous, untraceable. The twins were born in March, girls, identical, a new generation of mirrors. I held them and felt something I didn't expect, not maternal love, not biological connection, but responsibility. They were innocent, they were trapped. They were, in a way, me and Vanessa all over again. I named them Elena and Rosa, not the names Vanessa had chosen. Names from our grandmother, from a branch of the family tree our mother had pruned. Names that connected them to something older than our toxicity. The climax was Christmas, Marco's annual event. His family, his producers, his press. The unveiling of the perfect family before his new movie launch. He wanted Vanessa smiling, the twins displayed, the narrative confirmed. I prepared differently. I wore a dress that was Vanessa's style, red, dramatic, but I styled my hair like Vivian. Loose, unstyled, uncontrolled. I didn't use Vanessa's filters. I didn't perform her smile. I was someone in between, someone new. The dinner was lavish. 20 guests, crystal, cameras. Marco at the head of the table. Me at his right, the twins in a bassinet beside us. He raised his glass. To family, he said. To the women who make us possible. I stood, the room went quiet. I looked at Marco, at his family, at the press, and I spoke in a voice that was neither Vanessa's nor Vivian's. It was mine. The voice I'd been building for 32 years, through competition and silence and theft and survival. Marco, I said. Do you remember when you told me I was nothing without you? That my followers were yours, my money was yours, my body was yours because you bought it. That if I ever left, you'd take the twins and leave me with nothing. His face went pale. Vanessa, I'm not Vanessa. I reached up and pulled off the wig, Vanessa's trademark, her signature, the blonde perfection that made her recognizable. Underneath, my hair was darker, my own, grown in secret. I'm Vivian, her twin sister. And this, I pulled documents from my bag, spread them on the table like cards in a game I was finally winning, is proof that Vanessa authorized me to act in her name during her coma. Legal, notarized, irrevocable. The room exploded, cameras flashed. Marco stood, knocking his chair back. This is insane, this is evidence of your offshore accounts. I continued, my voice rising over his. Your affair with your assistant, the foundation you used to launder money, the threats you made to have Vanessa committed. And this, I held up the twins' birth records, is proof that Elena and Rosa are not yours, that you have no legal claim to them, that you never did. Marco lunged. I stepped back. Security, hired by me, briefed by me, paid by the accounts I'd established, intervened. They held him as he screamed, as the cameras recorded, as his family turned away and his producers calculated damage control. I picked up the twins. I walked to the door, and I looked back at the chaos, at the man who'd controlled everything, now controlling nothing, at the life I'd stolen and was now abandoning. Vanessa sends her regards, I said. From the life you never let her have. I found Vanessa, the real Vanessa, now living as Vivian in my small town in the apartment I'd left. She was grading spelling tests. She had a cat on her lap. She looked up when I entered, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. You did it, she said. I did it. I sat across from her. The twins were sleeping in their carrier. Marco is in litigation. The press has the story. Your brand is destroyed, but your money is safe. The twins are legally mine, yours, ours. I don't know anymore. She looked at the babies, at the faces that were new, that weren't ours, that had a chance to be different. What now? She asked. I didn't know. I still don't. We live in the same town now, in apartments 2 blocks apart. We share the twins, Elena and Rosa, who call both of us mama and neither of us exclusively, who will grow up knowing they have 2 mothers with one face. We don't celebrate holidays together. We don't call each other sister. But sometimes on Tuesdays we meet for coffee and we don't compete. We just exist. Two women who shared a face and a war and finally, exhausted, declared a truce. Marco is in prison for fraud. Not for abuse, the system doesn't have a category for what he did. Our mother has Alzheimer's. She doesn't recognize either of us, which is, in a way, the most honest thing she's ever done. I teach piano now. Not well, I'm still learning. But I teach the twins and I teach neighborhood children and I teach for free because some debts you pay forward. Vanessa, she teaches third grade. She grades spelling tests on Tuesdays. She has a garden. She is learning to be visible without performing. We are not healed. We are not friends. We are sisters who stole each other's lives and found in the theft something we didn't expect, the possibility of being someone else. Someone new. Someone who doesn't need our mother's love because we finally learned to give our own. I'm Vivian. I'm 32 years old. I have a twin sister who shares my face and a life that doesn't belong to either of us, and two daughters who will never know their father but will know, I hope, that they are enough, that they don't need to compete, that love is not a pie that shrinks. See you in the next story.